You know what that music means. Fox News is in America's election headquarters. National polls show the wide appeal of Donald Trump, but his numbers may actually be higher. Many polls could be missing some of his strongest supporters. As it is, the Real Clear Politics polling average puts him in front of the Republican pack at 22%. But if you include voters who normally are not counted, could his numbers really be higher? Jamie Weinstein, senior editor for the Daily Caller, is on The Real Story today. All right, so how could they be higher?
Well, the idea was first propounded by this columnist out in California, John Phillips, that maybe Trump is like Schwarzenegger was in California and Jesse Ventura in Minnesota, that he's bringing in voters who are not categorized as likely voters, people that usually are not politically active. So I reached out to a lot of pollsters to see, is this a possibility? And basically, they're throwing up their hands. They can't believe this Trump phenomenon to begin with, but they said it's absolutely possible, especially in New Hampshire and Iowa and some of the swing states where they're really focusing on likely voters. He might draw people who aren't actually likely voters, so it's possible that his numbers are actually higher than they are right now, and his lead is much bigger than people are polling.
So it's much different to talk about polling right before a general election in November, versus primary voters getting them out there in February or March. So what did they say about the fact that these likely voters, would they actually come to vote in the primaries?
So that's one of the counter arguments, that yes, maybe he's enthusing a lot of people, but usually they show up on election day like they did, those cases. Schwarzenegger was a recall election. It was kind of different than going to a primary, and obviously Ventura was in a independent in a general election. So maybe even if he's drawing in different people, they might not show up in a primary process while they might show up in a general election. So it could be very different.
Right. Okay, now let's talk about something else that the critics say. Listen, polling is off in general right now. Look at what happened in 2014. More Republicans won than the polls showed.
Right. Well, absolutely. I'd go back first to 2012. You had a lot of people saying they're underestimating Mitt Romney. He's actually doing better than he is. And it turns out the polls were generally right, that President Obama was in the lead and he won. But then you look at 2014 and you see a lot of these Senate races. Look at Tom Cotton in Arkansas. Polls showed it was neck and neck. When it came to actual voting, he won by over 10 points. It wasn't even a close race. So we've seen the polls get it right, and we've seen the polls get it drastically wrong.
Like the governor of Maryland, too.
Absolutely.
Nobody ever saw a Republican winning that state in 2014. Other people are saying that it's almost impossible now in polling to get a random sample. What do you think about that?
Well, the argument is that, no longer are people actually on their telephone like they used to be. They have cell phones. Maybe they're not answering it. So the argument is that it's hard to get a random sample and therefore get the right kind of metric and what you need a diverse group of people to actually get a poll right. Now, pollsters often say that, they have ways to account for that and, statistics to make up for that. But, it seems to vary depending on election. As I said, in 2012, they seemed to get it right. 2014, a lot of things went wrong.
It's interesting, though, that you bring up the voters who maybe haven't been active before, because those are the same voters that President Obama went after first of all, in Iowa. And Hillary Clinton caught her by surprise because they all showed up from the grassroots. So you never know, right?
Never
Until
know.
The actual day that people
Absolutely.
Go to vote. Jamie, thank you so much.
Thank you.